Despite DJI's best attempts to restrict the functionality of this 249-gram toy drone, as keen followers of this channel, you know that it is capable of some fantastic things, and we are big fans. We've already shown you how to create some stunning cinematic video footage. We've shown you how to take HDR photos with this drone, and in this video we're going to talk about creating some fantastic panoramic photos. It is, after all, what you do with it that counts. Stewart Carroll here from Drone Film Guide, the channel where we learn to fly like filmmakers and take great photos, and we talk about non-drone stuff from time to time and how to make YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. Pro tip, the reason everyone wears a baseball cap on YouTube is because you don't have to do your hair, and that increases your productivity by approximately 1000%. So, panoramas on our drones. We've become accustomed on the DJI Go 4 app to having panorama function built in for our Phantom 4, Mavic Air, Mavic Pro series, etc, etc, but it's been taken off the Mavic Mini for obvious reasons, so we don't cannibalize some of the more expensive drones with this cheap Mavic Mini. But that's okay. Personally, we never used the DJI Go app to create our panoramas anyway. We saved some photos and then brought them into a third-party program on our computer, stitched them all together, edited them in post, and got our final result. Now, typically, most people would talk about Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom. It's the industry standard for photo editing, but it's part of a paid subscription service along with Photoshop, and given that the Mavic Mini is an entry-level drone, probably a lot of you will not have access to Lightroom. So what we're going to use here is a fantastic little piece of software called Autostitch. It's free, super simple, super quick, and I love it. The homepage here of Autostitch does a great job of explaining the process of creating a panorama. It's very, very simple if you've never done this before. Basically, you're taking a whole bunch of overlapping photos and the software automatically stitches them together into a single photo, as you can see from this example of the mountain. If we scroll down a bit more, we have a clearer depiction of what happens. You take as many photos as you like, overlapping them as you wish, and the software brings them all together, balances out the exposure of the shots, and gives you a final result, a fantastic panorama. It really is that simple. I'll show you the mechanics of that in a second, but let's just talk about why we love panoramas. First of all, the lens on your drone is of course restricted in terms of its field of view, so there will be times where you want to get more in your shot than a single photo can take. As a consequence, you take more photos and stitch them all together. Great for doing huge landscapes. If you want to take one of these huge landscape shots with the Mavic Mini, it's very, very simple. Just set it to photo mode. Auto settings are normally as good as any, to be honest with you, on photo mode, not video, but in photo mode, auto settings are fine. And just rotate the drone on the yaw stick, turn it around, just take loads of photos and have tons of overlap. I'd say go for half overlap. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to be precise, as you can see here from the Autostitch website. Loads of photos. More overlap, the better, to be honest with you. There's no real downside apart from using up space on your memory card. You then bring them in and stitch them all together in Autostitch. It's very, very simple. Another option is to fly the drone laterally and take photos as you go. So a photo here, photo here, photo here, photo here. The only thing with that is you're going to struggle to capture the landscape because the amount of distance that you're going to have to cover will be quite enormous compared with rotating. But depending on the scenario, that could work as well, just flying sideways and taking more photos. Keep in mind that as well as taking horizontal panoramas, you can take vertical panoramas. So tilt the gimbal all the way down on the Mavic Mini, take a photo, tilt it up a little bit, take another photo, and within about 4 or 5 photos you'll have covered the full range of motion of the gimbal, and you'll be able to stitch those photos together for a nice vertical panorama. Another time we've found panoramas very useful is when we can't get far enough away from a subject and we want to take a photo. So a building, for example, or in the case of Alina and I on this rock in Glencoe, there was a road right behind the drone and we didn't want to fly the drone back far away so that we could get the composition we were looking for, so we took a panorama. The shot doesn't look like your typical panorama, but stitched together we got the field of view that we were looking for and the composition that we had in mind when we took the drone up. Before we jump into Autostitch, don't forget to grab yourself a copy of our free ebook From Drone Zero to Drone Hero, 37 tips to get you flying like a filmmaker. It's a fascinating read, a page turner, if you will. Link in the description below. It's free. We'll send you some more goodies after that. You might as well get yourself a copy. Now, as for this program, let me show you how easy this is. Available on PC and Mac. This is the Mac version and it couldn't be any simpler. The program is just this little box in the middle, a folder to import your JPEG images from your Mavic Mini, a play button to start the stitching process, and some settings. On the settings, I like to set the output size to scale 100%. I like to have a nice full size output so that I can resize it if I want it at a later date, crop it, all that kind of stuff, but I like to have the full size output. JPEG quality 90 is fine, and you can set the directory that you want or the folder that you want your panoramas to be sent to. So cancel that, let's import some files. So Crash Course, this is a product that we're working on, it'll be available later in the year, a nice drone course for you to check out at some point, but for now, Mavic Mini Pano 7. You can see all the photos in there that we took. Now let me just scroll through some of these. You can see that I've just been going through, let me make that bigger for you so you can see. These are the photos that are going to make up the panorama, and as I scroll through them you can see that I've left tons of overlap there, absolutely loads. There's no downside in leaving absolutely tons of overlap. So let's import 117 to 132. As you can see, we're loading the images. Check it out, people, how's that for a panorama? 16 photos stitched together. I just looked at the file information. That is 18,000 pixels wide and 3,700 pixels tall. It is roughly speaking a 65 megapixel photo. Because Autostitch is so basic, we need to do a little bit of tidying up on this photo. At a bare minimum, we need to crop it to get rid of all that stuff around the perimeter. Now, the industry standard is Lightroom, but it's quite expensive, monthly subscription. Not everyone wants to pay that. So the software that we use more often than not is Luminar 4. We have a partnership with them. We've mentioned them on this channel before, but it's really great. And the feedback that you guys leave in the comments for it as well is extremely positive and supportive. So do check out the link to Luminar 4, and we shall edit this photo now in Luminar 4. First things first, let's deal with the crop and sort out our composition. Now keep in mind that just because you're creating huge panoramas, bigger isn't always better. Sometimes that you find that a huge panorama distracts from an interesting focal point in the image. So in this shot, I want the focal point to be looking down the valley essentially. So I think we've got a bit too much at the sides here. So if we go into crop here, and let's just bring the sides of this in a little bit. Okay, something like that. Now the colours are a little bit flat. We've got a very bright sky and we have a fairly dark landscape. Classic situation in landscape photography, these kind of panoramas. Now you can play around with your colours to your heart's content, but the beauty of Luminar 4 is that it's very user friendly, so it's accessible for beginners all the way through to professionals. And one of the more beginner level functions, but with fantastic professional results, and I'm not just saying that because honestly I don't have any desire to sit here and spend any longer than I have to editing this photo. It's the AI Enhance, Artificial Intelligence Enhance, and this AI accent here, watch what this does. It cleverly looks to see where the image could do with being just enhanced a little bit. There's no other way of putting it. And look what it's doing to the landscape there. It's pulling a bit of brightness, a bit of contrast, a little bit of saturation actually into the landscape and just balancing up the exposure a little bit. If I switch it off and on, boom, it's like someone turned the light on. Now, this is all subjective. You have to be careful not to overdo these kind of things, but I personally love this. The AI Sky Enhancer finds out where the sky is, it does it automatically and pulls the exposure down a bit normally just to add a little bit more contrast into the sky, and it's doing a great job here actually. We need to be a little bit careful because we're dealing with JPEGs off a Mavic Mini, not RAW files off a Mavic 2 Pro for example, but nonetheless, let's look at the before and after. Boom, more detail in the sky, more detail in the ground. I love it, and to be honest with you, I think we're basically done with this photo. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Look at this little hut. I remember walking all the way up here. I stood up on this rock, nearly got blown off the mountain. Absolutely fantastic place. All this detail in this panorama. This is really a photo that you could print out and put on your wall. There are a ton of other cool functions in here worth taking a look at. AI sky replacement. Now I know some of you don't like it because it's fake, but at the end of the day we're talking about image creation here, not necessarily a perfectly accurate representation of the real world. So, you know, do with that information as you wish, but you can also change the skies and it does it automatically, and it's so clever. Don't ask me how it figures out where the sky is. I mean, this is a cloudy sky. This is quite a tricky situation, and it's also relighting the image there. It's relighting the landscape, the non-sky part, to match what it's done to the sky. Look at that, I like that. Okay, we'll switch that off for a minute and we'll go and deal with these little corners up here. Come up to the top here, our canvas tool, go to clone and stamp, and we are going to paint in some sky. We'll zoom in a touch here so that we get in on this. Now all we have to do here, and we have another video on this, so I won't get into detail, but you select a piece of the image that you want to basically paint in to the gap there. So I'm going to select this piece here. Okay, this is the source. I think my brush is a little bit too big there. Take the softness down, take the size down a little bit. Okay, something like that looks about right. And let's just paint that in. How clever is that? As I say, go check out our other video on this. If you're seeing this for the first time, it's pretty nice. We've got a chunk down here at the bottom, so let's just do something similar. Press Alt to select a new selection point, and we just paint across using that as the reference point. Just tidy this up a little bit here. I'm just doing a rough job just to show you how quick and easy it can be. That's good enough, I'd say. We'll move across and do the side here. Now, with more advanced panorama software, they tend to have a content fill aware function where they'll stretch out the actual image to fill in these gaps for you. So this is actually quite an advanced way of doing something that can be done fairly simply on the likes of Lightroom. But as I say, you have to pay for Lightroom. You have to pay for Luminar 4, but it's quite a bit cheaper and you can get some really cool results. So we're done there. Problem solved. The image is fixed. And there you have it, beautiful panorama from a Mavic Mini, stitched together with Autostitch, colours done in Luminar 4. I would print that out and put that on my wall. What a place, Glencoe, Scottish Highlands. For a laugh, let's just have another quick look at some of these sky replacement things, because I do find it a lot of fun. I guilty, I do. Let's look at some of these dramatic sunsets. I mean, this is working on a huge panorama, 65 megapixel panorama, and it still looks pretty good. It's seriously dramatic, I'll give it that. I like it. You can even do a kind of night sky. Check this out. Starry night. And if I relight the scene, put the relight up, it actually adjusts the colours of the landscape, as I said. And if we put galaxy on there. Yeah, it's cool. It's nice. Don't go faking it. Don't go pretending to be something that you're not. But have some fun with it and just enjoy your photography. Okay folks, I think we're done with that, but yet again you can see just how powerful a little drone like this can be. It's what you do with it that counts, and now you have the skills to create some amazing panoramas and edit them like a professional as well. Have some fun with it. Don't forget to check out that ebook From Drone Zero to Drone Hero, link in the description below. Check out our partner Luminar 4 for some really nice photo editing software. Stay in touch and check out our other Mavic Mini videos. There's so much here on the channel. It's a really good resource to improve your skills in a whole variety of ways, and we will see you next time on Drone Film Guide.